Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer. Two graded stakes races on tap at Churchill Downs on Saturday. Let's begin by taking a look at the field for race number 11, the Grade 3 Mint Julep Stakes for fillies and mares going a mile and a 16th on the lawn. $100,000 is the purse. And I think one of the major factors in this race, Mike, is which trainer is going to have one of these talented fillies and mares ready to rumble off the layoff, because we have several good horses making their first start in a long time.
Yeah, it's a big field, and it's a very, very good field, Dan. You're right, a lot of layoffs to deal with in this race, but I mean, you're talking about a Grade 3 race on the turf here that has several Grade 1 quality runners in it.
Another determining factor, in my opinion, in this race is the pace. And we take a look at the Timeform US pace projector. It's the rare gray bar scenario. Timeform US believes that this race will be run at a crawl, and that favors the horse on the outside, because we've seen the 14 Mitchell Road. When she is able to hear her feet rattle on the front end, she's very, very tough. Juliette Fox, to her credit, has good tactical speed.
Yeah, good tactical speed and a much better post for Juliette Fox in this race as well, as opposed to Mitchell Road. But, with the lack of speed, and there really is a lack of speed in this race, Dan, post 14 doesn't hurt Mitchell Road as much as it could have.
Agree 100% with that assessment. Let's start off with the number one, Juliette Foxtrot, and I've been chasing her ever since she was an impressive winner of the Modesty at Arlington Park, and since then it's been close but no cigar, although she's taken on some leading lights, horses like Vasilika and Uni, and this race, the Matriarch, Got Stormy and Daddy is a Legend. I thought Juliette Foxtrot ran well in this race, the Matriarch. She made the first run into a fast pace, and in doing so, she towed the winner, Got Stormy, who picked up her cover. Got Stormy goes by Juliette Foxtrot here. Juliette Foxtrot's going to blow the place late, but all in all, it was a useful performance for a very consistent mare.
She ran really well in this race. I mean, third best in here, just to a couple of horses who are better than she is, and a couple of horses who are probably better than anything that she's facing in this spot, Dan, as good as this field is. And she ran really well in the First Lady prior to that as well, making the lead once again ahead of Uni, who just flew down the outside and ran her over late. But she ran really well that day. I have no knocks on this horse. She's supposed to get a good trip in this race, and she is the horse to beat in here.
If there's a horse that could have won a Most Improved award, if there was such a thing in horse racing in 2019, perhaps it would have been the 2 Beau Recall. We remember her from her early exploits in Southern California, where she was mostly a bridesmaid, but never a bride. But Brad Cox took her over, and he really turned her form around. Let's go back to her most recent race, the Rodeo Drive. She's going to run an excellent second behind one of the Southern California leading lights of the division, that being Mirth. But she finally found ways to win races last year. Beau Recall, like Juliette Foxtrot, trained by Brad Cox, and she has certainly run races, including races at Churchill Downs, good enough to win this. The question is, does she get enough pace to run at?
We'll see what kind of trip she can get in this race. To her credit, she doesn't really need to be that far away. It doesn't seem like anymore anyway. Just to drive the point you were making home there, Dan, since Brad Cox took over in December of 2018, 7 starts, 4 wins, 3 seconds, a couple of graded stakes. Her figures have gone way up. There's just a lot to like about her. We'll see what happens off the layoff, Dan, and we'll see what kind of trip she can get. But she was in really good form the last time we saw her.
The number 3 is Winning Envelope, going out for the underrated trainer Chris Block. This horse was a stakes winner at Sam Houston 2 starts back. She does have winning experience at Churchill Downs. My personal feeling is I think she's a cut below the major contenders in this race, and I don't necessarily like the horses coming out of the Benson Memorial at Fairgrounds.
Yeah, true enough. I mean, that I'm a big fan of hers, Dan, and even I am not going to be using her in this race, I don't think. I mean, in a lot of ways, she truly is the kind of horse who's interesting sometimes in Grade 3 races, but this is not your typical Grade 3. I just think she's in too tough in this race.
Formulator factored a price, however, for winning envelope. Chris Block over the past 3 years, with older turf routers making a return off a 2 to 4 month day layoff. Limited positive data, 23% winners, a $3.32 return on investment. The 4 is She's on the Warpath. She has won 4 of her last 5 starts on firm turf, and she has done good work at Churchill Downs. She won the aforementioned Benson Memorial last time out. I guess she looked good enough doing it, but as I mentioned in discussing winning envelope, just not a big fan of that race as a whole.
I thought the horses exiting that race were in a pretty tough spot here as well. I mean, I'll give She's on the Warpath a little extra credit for winning that race last time, because she did lunge very awkwardly at the start of that race, but was able to overcome it, get a good trip, and then get the job done. But she's stepping way up in class here. I think it's going to be too tough for her.
While I'm a big fan of the number 5 La Signare, I'm ready to admit that I think last time was the time in the Sand Springs Stakes. She caught a race with a really solid pace. It seemed to set up for her, and she came with a solid run to beat another closer in the race, Zofeli. It's a completely different pace situation here, and she's facing better horses.
Yeah, that's true. She's in good form for since Brendan Walsh took over. I do think that she really has improved for him. I'll give her the credit she deserves for winning last time, Dan. When I watched the race back, I don't think that she was best in there. I feel like maybe Zofeli, if she could have got clear a little sooner, might have been best in there. We'll see, what happens between those two. Here's a question for you, though, regarding La Signare. You remember when she first got here for Brian Lynch, she was a speed horse. Do you think there's any chance they go back to trying to use her speed in this race? They probably should.
I think they probably should. It's just so hard to change what works. And I a lot of times I think jockeys and trainers get into the mindset that here's a horse, she finally broke through with a victory after a couple of frustrating efforts, and we don't want to take that away from her. Now, I'm not saying she's going to be last. I think if she's sitting third, 5 lengths off the lead, it really enhances her chances if the Timeform US pace projector is right. I do think they'll have her closer to the pace. The 6 Nay Lady Nay is one of several newly turned 4-year-olds that has a tremendous amount of upside potential for trainer Chad Brown. Before we talk about her, here's the formulator fact for Chad. Past 5 years, older last out winners off horses returning from a 6-month to a year layoff in tough spots. Graded stakes turf routes, well, he's 4 for 10, $3.19 ROI. Chad knows how to place these horses. I like the way she won that Parks Phillies Oaks 2 starts back. It may not have been the greatest field, but she beat she was one of 3 next out winners. Her win coming at Churchill Downs in the Mrs. Revere. She'll get a step up in class, but she's all upside.
Yeah, she really is. I mean, they've found a pretty tough spot for her to make her four-year-old debut, I think, but there was nothing wrong with her last year. It just felt like she kept taking little steps forward each time. You're right that she was impressive at Parks. She was just way too good for that field, though. I liked her winning the Mrs. Revere, Dan. I mean, I thought all in all it was maybe more game than anything else, but it was a very boggy turf course. She overcame that. She split horses late to win. I think she did some good things last year. This is a really tough spot for her to start back in, though.
And as always on our stakes previews, we show our picks at the very end of the video, and you'll notice that we both use the Severn secret message. And I think we'll both agree that this mare is dirtied up. She was just completely compromised by a slow pace and a wet track in the E.P. Taylor going long last time out. The Ballston Spa was a race. I think she ran a heck of a lot better than it looks on paper. That was a race with no pace, and she tried to get into it with a wide run. Her Diana was a sneaky good effort against 2 of the better horses in the division, Sister Charlie and Rushing Fall. Now, she may not get any pace to run at here, but I think she's a lot better than she looks on paper, and I think there's a chance she can drift off her morning line.
Yeah, I agree with all that stuff. I don't really have anything to add to it. I mean, you have to worry about what kind of trip can she get in this race if there's no pace. But it is, if nothing else, it's worth going back and just looking at her races from last year, because I really liked her first 2 starts when she won those races. You mentioned her Diana, where it's hard. I don't think you can really make the argument and say that she was going to win that race, but she had real trouble in the stretch there, and it really cost her. And you're right, Dan. I mean, her last 2 races, you will rarely find a horse finish 8th and beat 1 horse home and then finish last in her next start and actually run as well as she did in those races where she just had no chance to make any kind of an impact.
The number 8 is Alti going out for Chad Brown. And this mare ran well 2 starts back in the Endeavor. It was a race where Joel Rosario saved ground at the back of the pack, stayed inside, came with a run and just missed, and got wired that day basically by Jahazakat. In her most recent start, I don't think she had the best trip, but it was a race that kind of has been Alti's MO. She at times runs to the level of her competition, and she doesn't win very often. Of the Chad Brown trained horses in this race, I like her the least, although she'll be the best price.
Yeah, that's how I looked at her too. I mean, she's been here for over 2 years now with Chad. She's 1 for 13 in North America. That win in an allowance race at Aqueduct. And other than that, she's run well, more than once in graded stakes races, Dan, but she just can't seem to get it done. And last time, you're right, maybe her trip wasn't quite as good as the winner's was, but it ultimately worked out. And she had the lead in deep stretch and she couldn't hold on.
Varenka, the number 9, really won us over last year, Mike, with her performance in that non-winners of one other than at Saratoga, and then in the Lake Placid Stakes, a race run in a monsoon, a race with no pace whatsoever, and she still kicked down those horses to earn a dead heat. I believe of any horse in this race, she's the one with the most upside. And her race in the Queen Elizabeth II Cup, well, maybe it wasn't the strongest edition of that race. There was no pace. And if you know one thing about Varenka, she needs pace. She was running at the end of that race. She's coming off the layoff for Graham Motion. She's facing older horses. She's up against it from a pace scenario. But I think that this filly has a lot of talent.
I do too, and I'm going to use her in this race. As opposed to the other newly turned 4-year-old with a lot of upside, that's the Chad horse, Nay Lady Nay. I would just rather have Varenka in this spot at a much better price, it seems like. She got really good. She was actually underrated, by the way, as a 2-year-old where she couldn't break her maiden, but ran really well several times, including in the Breeders' Cup. And then last year, I just thought she got really good, Dan. And the interesting thing about all those races, when you go back and look at her 5 starts last year, she had no pace in any of them and overcame it more than once.
Hanalei Moon is the number 10. She's a nice mare, like a couple of others in here. I think she's a notch below the true graded stakes horses. She ran well in the First Lady at a giant price 2 starts back, a live race that produced 3 next out winners. But I thought all in all, the trip worked out for her that day. And in the Hillsborough, her seasonal debut, she kind of made a mid-race move and then she flattened out. I think she's better than that performance indicates. I'm just not sure she's good enough to pull off an upset against this type of field.
I didn't think she was either. I do expect her to be closer to the pace again in this race. The First Lady, too, back when she was last early, I think that was strictly a function of her having post 13. In this race, there's not much speed. I think they'll go forward with her and see what happens. I just couldn't talk myself into her.
Now, the 11 Zaffelli comes out of the La Signare Sand Springs race. I'm not sure I cut to that video. We could show it now if we haven't. Zaffelli's going to run second behind La Signare. There was a lot of pace in this race. It's set up for the closers. Zaffelli, though, had to wait a little bit before making her run. And you're going to see her move up down towards the inside, now have to ease off the rail. She is really motoring late, Mike. And Zaffelli's the kind of filly, though, that needs pace. And on the pace projector, she's not going to get it. But I think she's okay. She just needs to run a little faster on the buyer scale and maybe get a little help up front from a pace perspective.
Yeah, I think she's okay too. And, going back to that last race there, obviously it's not like she got totally stopped in that race, Dan, but she was stuck in behind there and couldn't get her momentum up. And by the time she did, La Signare had the jump on her. I just feel like she came out of that race really unlucky. Other than that, since Brendan Walsh has taken over, she's run one good race after another. She needs a little bit of pace and she needs a trip in the spot.
I think Coco Channel is going to be a little bit more aggressively ridden in this race than she was last time out at Turfway Park on a synthetic surface, a race where she caught a really hot horse, a horse that came back to win with an 86 buyer, then came back to win a stakes race at Turfway with another 86 buyer speed figure. She's 0 for 17 on the turf, however. She's a little bit tough to trust, but I do think they're going to try to get a little forward with her in a race without much pace. She was the pace setter in this race last year, although this race last year was not as strong as the 2020 edition.
I can see her showing more speed in this race. I don't think it's going to matter.
Elizabeth Way, the 13, is a 4-year-old that has some recency on some horses in this race. She won her first 2 starts in North America in very nice fashion for Roger Attfield. Got a really good trip to win the very one 2 starts back on the lead, but she's versatile enough to have also won from dead last. I liked her a little bit last time out in the Orchid. She got wired by Mean Mary. Maybe that distance was just a little far for her and she was flat. We're going to watch that race right now.
Yeah, listen, I don't think she ran poorly at all in here, Dan. They settled her back off the pace. She did get a clean run along the inside, and you can see her there. She's third now, and that's where she's going to finish, not really make any impact on the 1-2 finishes in here. But I think you want to kind of remember here at 11 or 12 furlongs on the turf, the horses that run 1-2 in here are probably going to be, 2 of the top runners in that division, the long distance turf division for fillies and mares all year long. They're both really good. Elizabeth Way cutting back for this, I can see that working out for her.
The last 4 times that Mitchell Way has made the front after the first call of her races, well, she's won all of them. Timeform US believes that she's going to be in front after a half mile here. She was not in front last time at the fairgrounds. She was not in front 2 starts back at Gulfstream. She didn't run poorly in either of those races. It's a bit odd that she hasn't been strong from the gate in those races, but I think Joe Talamo just simply has to use her natural speed and just have confidence that this mare kind of puffs up her chest and gets brave when she's on the lead.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think her speed makes her dangerous. I do think she's going to be a fair price in this race too. So if you like her, I can sort of understand taking a shot with her. I kind of, had a tough time making myself believe that she was good enough to beat all these horses. I mean, there's a lot of good horses in here, Dan, and I had a tough time talking myself into her, but I could see using her somewhere if she's a big price, because I do think she's making the front here.
Well, let's take a look at our top picks for the Grade 3 Mint Julep full field of quality fillies and mares on the Churchill turf course. Mike's going for a little price. Secret Message, a bit dirtied up. If you give her a little bit of pace, I think she's a lot better than she looks on paper. She's my 4th pick. You're going 7, 1, 9, and 11.
Yeah, that was sort of my thinking with Secret Message. I think it's a tough spot for her, Dan, and she's going to need at least some help because of her running style. But I just think she's really dirtied up, and I think she's better than she looks on paper. So at a price, I'll take a shot. But that being said, I'm not against the favorite, Juliette Fox. I think she's way the horse to beat in here.
I agree with you. I think she is the horse to beat. I think as Timeform US projects, she's going to work out a good trip off of Mitchell Road. No Got Stormies, no Unis in here. This is her chance. I mean, listen, she has to prove it off of a layoff. She has to prove that she really has that killer instinct. But I do think she's pretty good, and I think she can get through this. I went 1-6-2-7 in the Grade 3 Mint Julep, mile and a 16th on the turf. Approximate post time for race 11 is 6:16 Eastern. Good luck.